Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is the weekly podcast interview for my podcast. This is Misha Safran speaking, your joy and resilience coach, empowering parents and students to build healthy relationships with one another, as well as succeed in life, school, and family. So I am delighted today to be bringing to you a friend of mine and just a wonderful human and someone who shares my dream of families having joy and resilience. And this is Vanessa Callaghan. And we are going to be talking about the joys and pains of parenting. And so I want to share with you her bio. And so what you'll see here is that Vanessa is a parent empowerment coach. She is known for her refreshingly honest, hands-on, and personal approach. And really, she's so down to earth and so authentic. You guys are really going to enjoy this today. Vanessa empowers parents to find the calm, confidence, and tools they need to address challenging behaviors, such as meltdowns, powerful struggles, sibling fights, and motivation issues. Who isn't unmotivated right now? It's been a really challenging year, but this is for all times. Vanessa also helps families shift painful dynamics so that love can flow more freely between family members while they build resilient lifelong relationships based on respect and appreciation and love. Vanessa is the founder of Raising Our Resilience and draws upon 15 years of classroom experience and her educational research background in positive psychology, Montessori, motivation, child development, and resilience at UC Berkeley. She also brings her life experience as a step parent, caregiver, member of the LGBTQ community, and mixed race person of color to create a safe, supportive, shame-free learning environment. So that's interesting that, we both have so many similarities, but I'm also a step parent, caregiver, member of the LGBTQ. And so what you want to know too is that Vanessa works with clients one-to-one, private coaching intensives as a year-long program. This is called the Family Foundations Immersion. So welcome, Vanessa. I'm super happy to see you and have you here. How are you today?
The joy and the pain today. It's like this is the perfect topic. Doing well. Happy to be here with you, Misha. Just such an honor for you to share your space with me and bring me on so I can we can get some real talk here about what the experience of raising children in our world today and the world that we're creating together in the future. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm glad you're here as I've been kind of redirecting myself to really do what I love to do, which is work with students, but also work with their families. We work with different age groups. So, I mean, of course, either of us could work with any of the parents out there, but tell us a little bit more about your parent group and the ages of the children and what brought you, the pains and joys that brought you into this particular area.
Yeah, I mean, like we all do, as we start to have children in our worlds, we start to look at what are the models that I was raised with, what are the models that I see in my own community, and what do I want to create for my own either classroom, if you're in the school environment, which is where I got my start, or with your own children or your bonus children, we call them now in our blended families. And it's that awareness that we start to have around, like, there's actually choices of how we're going to do things like discipline, how we're going to sort of get on the same page as a family about what our values are. And there's joy in that because when there's alignment, so much is possible in the family. You get to have more ease, more fun. But there's also some pain in that when you realize that maybe you've been going down a road for a little while, even with, you're at year 2 or 3 of caregiving or parenting, and you're like, wow, I've really been using too many heavy consequences that I can't follow through on. For example, it could be one pain.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
or man, it just seems like we're still always having screen time battles and everything's about screen time battles and how did we get here? So those are the pains.
Mm-hmm.
Joy is when you have breakthroughs and it actually makes your relationship stronger in those areas. So yeah, so I got here into the resilience space just like you, Misha, because I realized that if a family can bounce back with whatever life brings, it'll bring them closer, and you'll have those rock solid relationships to lean on. And that actually predicts really positive outcomes for all members of the family, but especially for the kids.
And I imagine part of what brought you here is that you are very aware, having a family yourself and having been a daughter in a family, that families don't bounce back alone. Like the support is really, really essential. I just got goosebumps, right? I mean, it's not just about needing a team for our children, but it's actually needing teams for our families, for the whole family unit.
100%. And I always think I like to say that parenting is the most valuable job, like raising a child is the most valuable job on the planet. And so there's all these like,
Yes.
there's so, right? And there's so much in terms of responsibility, and we have such high stake outcomes of like developing a whole human, getting them ready for their lives. And yet there's sometimes some stigma around needing help or support in this space, as if what we learned when we were a child is going to be like something we're going to remember now as an adult, first of all, and that what we grew up with is what our current family needs or what our current child needs or even aligns with what we value. So I just love that in this space we can build support where, you know, sometimes folks have been shy to ask for help in the past. So
Yeah.
it's an exciting time. Like the families I'm seeing who are leaning into this idea are just having breakthrough after breakthrough, and they're just so grateful that they kind of got over that stigma or that hump, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's interesting. I was actually just corresponding with parents of a student that I was working with this year because I do also work with students. And I told them, I said, I find that the highest value all year of working with their student was these last few weeks when I was working with them to acknowledge that they were having misunderstandings and expectations that they hadn't shared with each other. And the last 2 weeks of guiding their son through the end of freshman year high school was so beautiful. Right. And so, but yet the stigma of not asking for help, not, or even within the family unit, like the husband and wife here, and I work with all different backgrounds of families, as do you, but it was like there was this unspoken language happening, and it was so indecipherable that when they realized when we realized that's what it was, we could move forward. Right. And so I imagine it's kind of leading me into the question for you, which is what kinds of challenges, besides this aversion to asking for help, what kind of challenges do you see families having, and what can parents do about it?
Well, so in my research and in my work with hundreds of families for almost 20 years, you know, I've played a lot of different roles, and it was always striking to me that when parents would come to me for help, when they would kind of get through, have that first breakthrough of like, okay, I need help with something, almost never, like so rarely was it about an academic question, even though I was trained to be their educator, right? It was always about, right? So it's always, for me, it was, you know, at the younger ages, I'm talking 2, 4, 6, and, you know, even up to 8 and 9, the parents came to me wondering about social and emotional questions, like how do I get my child to listen better at home? How do I get to school on time and run this so the morning, like I would have parents come to my door to drop off their child 5 minutes late, and everybody looks exhausted and stressed already, and it's only 8:35 in the morning. So those pieces that are sort of like the social and emotional pieces, once those are in place, and all the academics and everything else is possible. And I know that when you work with middle school and high school kids, you're not just teaching them like math strategies, you're teaching them like study strategies and life strategies, right? That's why you're a life coach for kids and an academic coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you know, what we can think about are trying to identify, like in my family, what is it that stands out that just really needs more attention, that's a pain point for us? Like, what is our challenge? Is it those routines, like smoothing them out? Is it how we handle conflicts and repair? Could it be like that the ways that we motivate our kids, you know, just don't quite fit our values, feeling like you have to use punishments and rewards more than you like, for example. Another could be that boundaries and expectations just really aren't established and aren't very clear yet. And these are all parts that just bring up those pain points where you start having more meltdowns and tantrums and power struggles. where like the relationship feels strained and you get drained, of your energy.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
those were the themes that I saw time and time again as I was having problems brought to me when I was a classroom teacher, and then later as I was starting to, really step into the parent empowerment space.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so what kind of outcomes do you see kids having when the parents get on board with addressing these areas?
Oh, it's pretty exciting. So, and this is where the research got really interesting for me. I conducted my own study, but I also read over like 100 motivation studies, and then also looked at, all of these bodies of work around parenting styles and outcomes. And one of my favorite pieces that I came across was the blend between being a demanding parent, meaning like having high expectations
Mhm.
for kids to like meet their true potential, right? So we're not saying you need to be perfect or you need to be the best. It's like you need to be the best you. Let's
Mhm.
help you be the best you. And then blending that demand with support. So making sure that that love and that warmth and that key, like really good tools and strategies are actually coming together to be
Yeah.
like warm and supportive and demanding. And when you put these two things together with things like being able to coach your child through their tough emotions, but also don't indulge their emotions too much so that they wallow, right?
Mhm.
Like being able to help them
Mhm.
strive and motivate themselves, but not punish them if they don't get all A's, just these kinds of things
Mhm.
where you pull them together. They have better friendships because they're able to, basically they're happier, first of all, so they're friendlier, but also they tend to have more social and emotional skills in general. Like they're able to maybe speak their mind in a way that's powerful but isn't harmful, right? They're able
Yeah.
to, have an injury and then come with ideas for solving a problem or repairing. So better friendships. Um, they surveyed like middle school kids and up to adults who had these warm, supportive, and demanding parents. And they reported higher satisfaction with their lives,
Mm. Yeah.
which is just a
That
sort
makes
of like
sense.
overall wellness measure, because you could say like, well,
Yeah.
how happy are you? And that's sort of more of a mood. But it's like, how
Yeah.
satisfied are you with your life currently as a young child, as a young adult,
Mm.
as an adult? And they were reporting much higher levels than those who said that their parents were either all demanding, only supportive, or weren't warm enough. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, they also tend to express more like appreciation and have a more grateful sort of affect or attitude.
Mhm.
So that
Mhm.
really curbs that concern that if we put too much attention on our kids' needs, they become entitled, right? And so
Mhm.
there's actually ways around that too, where you're not
Mhm.
necessarily putting so much attention on your kids that you're sending this entitled child out, adult into the world.
Mhm.
They can,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to, they can also have that gratitude in place. Less behavior
That's interesting.
challenges at home
Oh, go
and
ahead.
school
Yeah.
too. Sorry, yeah,
Mhm.
speak to that point because I think that one struck me too when I saw that in the research. I was like, oh, so this whole idea of
Yeah.
like parents now being like over involved with their kids, it's like there's a way to do it that actually promotes their appreciation and even their like fortitude out in the world, right, with these relationships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things that you and I both do to help our parents is to help them identify where to be involved in their own world. Because you like the
Mm.
oxygen mask, right? You put on your oxygen mask first, and then you can lead healthier, joyful, more resilient lives with your children. And so I think this notion of, um, you know, well, when you talked about the overprotective or the over-involved parent, or I'm doing this because of helicopter parents, I had a lot of those when I was teaching. If
Sure.
we can kind of create some distance, not in a loving connection, but create some distance in how much we do for our children, how much
Yes.
we praise our children as opposed to letting our children kind of discover, to fall, to rise with our support, but not with everything we've got. We can
Yes.
then have time to also support ourselves, self-care, exercise, nutrients, and the more we are modeling taking care of ourselves, the more our child sees, oh, mom values herself, or dad, or they or them, mom, parents value
Hmm.
themselves. That's a really great notion for me to kind of hold on to. I can value myself too, as opposed
Right.
to being
Yes.
everything done for them, right?
Yes.
There's no
Yes.
room
And
to
that's
breathe.
kind of kind of where the demanding side of the balance comes up, because
Mhm.
part of being demanding isn't just reaching their ultimate potential in, say, like a hobby or an interest area. It's also in their like self-management, in their
Right,
self-awareness, in their
right.
ability to critically think and fail forward, as you were kind of alluding to there. Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
true. hmm
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I like what you said about how that also helps us as adults, like be that model, because a lot of these outcomes I'm talking about are a result of showing more than telling. That's one of my key points that I
Mhm.
always bring my clients back to, and anyone who is in my world, whether I'm training teachers, you know, at a conference with a ballroom of 500 people, or if I'm in a living room with two parents, you know, we talk about how showing can be 10 times more impactful than telling. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and
You don't just tell a child to go clean their room. Well, because that has a
yeah,
totally different meaning to them than it would to me, right? So we walk into the room
exactly.
together and we clean the room together the first few
Yes.
times. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then they can start to develop those skills to go clean their room themselves, right? I mean, it's like,
Exactly. So helpful to walk them through it. And I think that's the part we often skip in the demanding side. We'll like know what we want at the end of the like the end finished product, but we don't spend enough time in like the process and the scaffolding, the steps to get there, and showing them. And then, you know, and that's like also all these communication skills built in here that they get, because then guess what they have the ability to do then. They have the ability to break things down into smaller steps for themselves and others. They become
exactly.
great collaborators on projects, great leaders of teams
Yeah.
they're managing in the future. And that's a really high level skill. So it's a really good one to give them
Yeah.
early. You can give it to them as early. Like I had a client I was talking to this morning, 4-year old and almost 5, really kind of a bright, fiery, dragony kind of kid, like lots of power and stuff. And I said, wow, you
Mm,
know, this is your opportunity to show her how power works and how she can turn that into positive power. And I was just thinking of
absolutely.
her charging the way on some like breakthrough research project someday, or whatever she ends up funneling that passion into. And it was exciting to me. Yeah.
Those
But
are the kinds of things that excite us for sure.
for sure.
So,
Yeah,
some people would be listening going, that
absolutely.
excites you? I'm like, yeah, that totally excites me.
Well, because you know, it's like that's a flip the script part of, you know, what helps parents kind of, you know, and all of us adults when we're around this kind of like the raw materials or the raw elements of these young lives, you know, there's so
Yeah,
much potential stored there that if we can see what the real goal is, you know, like help me understand power while I'm in this body, you know, that's kind of what this child is yelling out when she's like coming
right,
at them, trying to hit them. You know, it's
right.
like, and yeah, and it was a fun little pause in the session this morning actually with these clients where they're like, right, because it's a form of communication. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, and there's a goal. Yes, there is, and it just sort of helped them relax. Like,
Yeah,
okay, got it. You know,
yeah,
so that's
yeah,
another piece to
absolutely.
carry forward. Well,
Yeah,
just real quick, so shifting to like what it is, the outcomes for the older kids, higher
mhm,
GPA,
right. Oh,
great.
absolutely.
Absolutely. More engagement in school, which is what I found in my study, like, you know,
Mhm,
times 2, times 3 for some kids.
mhm,
Were
mhm,
much more engaged, doing their assignments, completing homework on time, you know, those kinds of things.
mhm.
Um, and then for adolescents, like my colleague found less anxiety and depression in teens,
Yeah,
and less likely to drop out of school or to, you know, participate in really risky behaviors.
yeah,
Um, and the tendency to just like identify as someone who strives and someone who is like proud of their critical thinking skills and ability to make good decisions, which I think is just like every teenage parent's dream, you know, right?
yeah,
It's like teen parents'
yeah.
dream, like, oh, thank goodness, you know, before you can grab those keys and walk out the door, like, let's
Mhm.
get you some great decision making skills. So
Yeah.
yeah, lots of goodness on the other side of this journey, like for the kids and for the teens
Mhm,
and the young adults
mhm.
that they're becoming. Yeah, for
Yeah, and I
sure.
think that, when we come together, like we've talked about, when the parents come together, whether it's single parenting, co-parenting, union parenting, like they're married and living together or whatever. Regardless, there needs to be some coming together to support each other to support our children.
Absolutely.
Right. And so whether they're the ages of the kids that your parents have or the ages of the parents my kids have, the adolescent area, it's really about identifying, like you said, what's going on here, what's the normal behavior, and what is the desired goal, and what is the behavior being used to try to get that goal, and how can we teach the behavior that is healthier. Right. And it starts with the family, the parents, as far as I'm concerned. Like we have kids of all different kinds. Right. And maybe you disagree. I don't know. But there's a lot of when the parenting is feeling extremely painful, I think that that's the opportunity to say, I need help. I want to see my kids having outcomes that feel more aligned with joy and resilience to becoming an adult who can live their life and come back to home feeling like they're loved, that we're not always disappointed in them, that we really love them, care for them unconditionally. And I think that only starts when you get that balance you were talking about. And so I guess I would ask you maybe, how do you feel that this balance and this work and these challenges and how we're kind of bringing everyone together and on board, how does this bring more joy and resilience into the family?
Oh yeah, so this is fun. Well, I'm going to go back to the challenges and kind of paint a picture of how it feels joyful and resilient. And this is especially for any parents out there who have kids between the ages of like 2 and 12, right? So the younger ones. But so when you're trying to get out the door in the morning, and instead of feeling like you are constantly reminding, nagging, chasing after your child or children to do basic everyday tasks, and instead they've got their own like sort of checklist of things that they know they need to get done, they're kind of internally motivated to get them done, feeling proud when they come out of their room, like, out of their whatever their zone of, where they're getting ready. They're already dressed, their teeth are brushed, they've got their, things in their backpack. They're looking proud and ready to sit down and have a great breakfast with you. That's joy, for sure.
Yeah.
It's also resilience, because instead of showing up at the gate of school already looking like you've had a 12-hour day, there's some bats in your, I've seen it, I've been there in my own ways,
Yep.
There's bright shine in the eyes. There's a really good
Hair's
feeling
all over the place.
Yeah. And I have to, and
Yes.
I laugh because I know it, and also I cry because it's like, I know that feeling of guilt at that moment when you drop off your kid and it was a bad morning, and you're just like feeling all the feels around it, because you feel bad that it went so badly. You worry about what your part was in it. You maybe feel less solid in your relationship. So resilience, because you build, those are the everyday moments that build a relationship, and you can have a smoothly running morning, and you can have a sweet goodbye, and you both still have energy, and you both and you have a sense of security around, like, my child's off to have a great day. That's
And you're
so
excited to see
impactful.
each other at the end of the day rather than
Yes.
dreading it.
Yes.
Dreading that
Yes.
return of, oh, I'm going to see them
Right.
again when I get home, or, and like here we are going to be in that conflict again. Right?
And I want to tell a brief story about that. And I have permission from a dear friend and client, Martha. And at the time when I was supporting her, she had her young child in preschool, and I was her child's preschool teacher. And she admitted to me recently, he's now a teenager, that there was this really key moment that she had this moment of realizing that she was thinking of being with her son as a break from the other way around. She was thinking of being at work as a break from having to be with her son. And she felt so bad about it, and because it was going so badly, especially at pickup time, where she would come to the gate, he would run up and scream and howl and try to beat her up, so ragingly mad at her. And it just broke her heart every time. It was so hard. And so it got to the point where she would sometimes sit in her car and have to sort of strengthen like herself before coming through the gate to be able to handle this onslaught of attack from her sweet
Mhm.
child. It was the opposite of what you just said. And so about a week into it, I saw her start seeking some help with her eyes. That look like, what do I do here? So I came over and, gently kind of intervened and brought him inside to calm down, had him come out and worked some of the tools and strategies that I know around motivation, around resilience. And I brought him out and he was ready to go with her and it was peaceful. And she just said, Vanessa, you have to explain to me what you just help me, help me with what was that?
Yeah,
So I met with
yeah.
her. I met with her. And that was really one of my first mentees. This was very early in my career. And we sat and we had meetings and meetings. And what we came to is just helping address his goal, which was he wanted more time at school. He wanted to share what he was doing on the yard with his mom. And he
Mhm.
wanted a more graduated transition before they would leave, but he had no way to articulate that. So he
Correct.
came and would beat her up and yell at her instead. So we
Like, why are
helped
you
to
here
kind of,
disturbing my fun?
yeah, and we helped to translate what his need and goal was there, help her get on the same side of the goal with
Right.
him so he could see. And so then what he would do is he would skip over to her, grab her hand, pull her over to this bench that they had decided she would sit at. And then she would watch him do 3 or 4 things on the yard, and he would keep checking back and saying, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And
Wow.
then she would say, "I have, are you ready to go and get your lunchbox?" He'd be like, "Sure." And then they would leave. It was like this
Yep.
transformation.
Yep.
And she said that the tools she learned in that moment, she applied all through the next 10 years. And she said recently,
Mm.
Vanessa, I just got the most amazing text. And I said, "What was it?" She goes, "Well, let me tell you, I was fighting with him in the car. And we both decided to just stop talking because we were both too angry to have a productive conversation." And she goes, "I would have never imagined myself as a teenager having that kind of conversation with my parent. Would you?" She asked me. And I was
Mhm.
like, "No, never, ever." You would just be silent treatment or something. But you wouldn't consciously say, "You know what? We should probably talk about this later. We're too angry." And
Yeah.
then they got, and this is the text she got. And she showed it to me. It was something like, "Mom, I'm sorry I was such a jerk in the car earlier. I do need to work on my time management. The thing is, I want to pick which app I use. Would that be okay?"
Oh my gosh.
Like, what a
That's
high level,
awesome.
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he
So there's
clearly
joy.
knew because of all this you guys have done together. He knew at this point there was a solution and that he potentially could have choice in that solution. And I think we both
Yeah,
teach our parents and the kids that this is about choice. You
yeah,
can still be an authority, the firm demanding parent, but you can do it with love. And really,
mhm,
actually my children's kindergarten teacher is the first one who taught me about choice. I would go in and observe her in class, and I always ask the kids, do you want to do this or you want to do this? This is the outcome for this. This is the
right.
outcome for that. Which would you like to do? And this child, who's now a teenager, is able to say, this is what I'd like to do. Is that okay? Like, I do want to
Yeah,
manage my time, but can we do it this way? I mean, I love it. And I work with my tweens and
yeah.
teens to develop the same practice. It's so important
You
because
sure
then they take
do. It's so
ownership.
powerful. Yeah,
They take
yeah,
ownership in their direction. And then the parent can step back a little bit and breathe. And that's very
yeah.
hard to do because we want to
It
be
is
in
hard.
every
Yeah.
decision and every action our children make because we think we
Right,
can do it better
right.
or we think that they
Yeah.
won't or we trust and don't trust, who know, but that's a
And
great
then
story.
yeah, and then it can go either way. Like we can continue to get in that space and be in these struggles, or they will reject us so hard that we end up not getting completely um kind of departmentalized out of the child's life, and they keep us out, keep that door shut,
Exactly.
don't come out, only come out for
Yeah.
dinner, go back in. So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have heard about your work and see that, like, because I work with the parents when the kids are a little on the younger side, and then you know I just get the sense that no matter where you're at in your parenting journey, no matter what age your kids are, no matter how far along you think you are in being able to do things like set up a smooth routine where your kids are on board, or have your kid have a problem solving conversation like my
Yeah.
dear Martha's son did. um, there's something you can do. And so like for and my framework happens to be based off these 7 pillars to build a
Mhm.
foundation for a resilient family. One of them is that routines piece. We mentioned before, we're like the having setting limits or having healthy
Mhm.
boundaries, helping the parents and kids develop really good communication tools for conflict resolution and repair. And there are other ones as well, but I feel like the joy is the result of that, right? Like that smooth morning, or that amazing text you get, or like, feeling like you're on the same page with your kids and the other parents or caregivers in your kids' lives. Like, how many two household families end up in my program so that they have a way to align? It's incredible.
That's really important.
Yeah, and it's sometimes really hard to find. Like, it's not mediation, it's not counseling exactly. It's more like, can we just like make a plan together, kind of meetings? And when they have that, like you get to have both. You get to have the joy and the resilience, because you get to have those great experiences, but then you have the resilience of knowing you can always lean back on the strategies and tools that you've gathered as a family and that you're putting into place. I find a lot of my clients are like gathering tools and strategies, then they're in lab mode where they're trying to figure out like, what does my kid need though? And kind of like speaking to what you were talking about, another piece that brings a lot of joy is realizing that there's no one or perfect way to parent, because there's no one way that a child needs to be parented.
Right.
And that I always say, don't try to be the perfect parent. Don't try to be the best parent. Be the parent that your child needs you to be.
Exactly.
And let me help you figure out what that is. Let's work with what you've already figured out, and let's keep going, because my gosh, when you do that, what's possible is just tremendous. Years and decades of great relationship and success for your kids as well. So,
well,
yeah.
I think one thing that's important to acknowledge, and you can see this actually in the sales model too, but in the parenting model, it's really, really crucial, which is that if we strive to be perfect parents and not identify the needs of our child to be the parent that our child needs, we're going to create a situation for them when they become parents where they're never gonna meet up. They're gonna feel like I can never be a parent. I can never do this or that. And it's like, so it's about developing your parenting style to really, like you said, match the needs of your child, so that they can quote unquote repeat the process if and when they're ready. But I think that relaxes the family environment too, if you're not all stressed out about being perfect.
For sure. Yeah. And then there's also like some folks who don't strive for perfection, but they've also have a sense of maybe like, well, this is just how it has to be. This is how it is. I've got a difficult kid, or I'm not a patient parent, and they can get a little resigned. And
Exactly.
I would also encourage those folks to consider the invitation to take another look, right? And say, well, maybe there are small things I can do just as a start, and see if it makes that change. Like I had this one client who was like, she's like, maybe I'm just that mom who yells in the street and I don't know what to do. Like, that's just my temperament. I just must have a bad temper. But then she came to a meltdowns workshop of mine, and she said she was skeptical, but she brought home one tool that she learned from the meltdowns workshop. She shared it with her kid, and it worked. Like they started using it immediately, and it de-escalated the meltdowns quickly. And she just said, okay, Vanessa, like she ended up being doing a 6-month coaching intensive with me, because she's just like, why wouldn't I? But she was one of those parents, right, who was also kind of reluctant or resistant. And I just want to invite you into the possibility that maybe it's simpler. Like, you don't have to be a different person, but there are parenting strategies that your child might respond to more because of their particular goals or temperament. So, yeah,
I think that's
so
really,
possible.
really key. And I know I want to make sure I honor your time and the audience, but I think that's really, really key to this notion of take one thing. So for example, if instead of reading 15 books or asking 30 people, get a healthy coach like Vanessa. If you're a parent who's working with kids who are ages 2 to 12 or 2 to 11, it would be great. I would love, Vanessa, actually, for you to share with parents. You have a training coming up next week. It's 6-day training. Would you be willing to share with families what this looks like, and what they might get out of it?
Oh, absolutely. It's such a fun training
And
too.
we'll pop the link. I think I already popped the link in for people to register, but I can put it in again.
Oh, great. Well, first of all, it's a totally free, like, toolbox filling 6-day series with a lot of fun. You can probably see what part of my temperament is like. I definitely bring a lot of like play, joy, stories, hands-on things as well. And you'll get to explore 6 different kinds of calm parent strategies. When I say calm parent strategies, it's like ways that when you're in that moment where you know your patience is getting tested and you want to be able to stay calm, you'll be able to just pull a tool out and use it, and it could take maybe 10 to 20 seconds, and you're back. You know, so we want to retrieve those moments, because that's a lot of times what puts the strain on the relationships, right? Is like how we act when we're not calm.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What are we doing now that we're going to have to apologize for later?
Right. And like, it's not the model I want to give to my kid about like how to be in charge or whatever it is, right? So
Right.
yeah, like you drop the idle threat and then you can't follow through, and then you're like, oh great, I just backed myself into a corner, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, so how do we not do that? How do we stay calm? How do we get our build our patience muscles and things? And so I'll give these 6 tools, but then within each day, and it's only like for about 20-30 minutes, these trainings at 10 a.m. all next week. And then the replays will be available for folks who can't make it. What we'll do is we'll make sure to give you variations of each tool so that you can see which one feels like the right fit for you. And then what's fun is that you can then go try those variations with your children and see which ones are the best fit for them too. Because maybe your breathing tool is going to look different from their breathing tool. Your tense and release tool is going to look different from theirs. But the point is that these tools work, and you get to pick which variation you want to use for yourself and your family. There's also prizes, as well as an opportunity to win a grand prize if you participate in the contest, the bigger contest as well.
Fun.
Yeah. And nothing takes more than 5 to 10 minutes, all of these things that I'll be sharing. So I make it really easy for parents to start filling their toolboxes. So
you really do, actually. I've watched several of your trainings, and you really, I love the one about the brain. And I mean, there's so many things that you offer that are just wonderful nuggets and really are simple, don't take a long time to understand, and I think shift family dynamics in huge ways. So I really applaud you for all the work you are doing. Folks, if you are listening now or watching the replay or listening on the podcast channel, please take a moment to think about what level of joy and resilience is there in your family today. And if it's not as high as you want it to be, please feel free. If you have the kids between ages 2 and 11, please consider attending the free training that Vanessa is. I just love the name, Calm in the Chaos. It's like so perfect. So yeah, I just implore you to seek out the help and guidance that you need to raise that level of joy and resilience. And yeah, Vanessa, is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we say goodbye to people?
Well, just reminding folks that, not only is parenting the most valuable job on the planet, right? Okay. But also, it really does take, it's an old saying, but it's really true. It takes a village. And I like to say, and I've seen this, it takes a village of resilient parents to raise resilient kids. Yeah. And I guess just leaving us with the reminder that we don't have to do this alone. Community is here around parenting. We get to do this together in Misha's community, in the Raising Our Resilience community, and then bring those tools into our natural organic communities as well. We get to do this together, which is so much easier, and so it helps us all be more resilient.
Yay, resilience! Yeah. Woohoo!
Yes.
And when you have more resilience, you have more joy, and when you have more joy, you get to play. And I love playing, so hopefully that's a great invitation to everyone. So thank you, everyone. We're so glad you were able to be with us. And Vanessa, I'm sure you're going to have a great training next week. I sure hope people take you up on it. We're going to raise a resilient future, because that's what our bring, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on, Misha. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody.